Hello, everyone. If you are joining us live, welcome. We are so excited to have you here today. If you are watching the recording, thank you for joining us. We are so pleased to present this session. I am going to turn it over I'm Allison Farrell, Fireside's Director of Marketing, and I'll turn it over to Bart Yancey, our CEO, for just a quick message before we get started with road mapping your life with our very special guest, Rod Stewart.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Bart Yancey. I'm a co-founder of Fireside, and I'm our CEO as well. And we're excited to have you and to be able to listen to Rod. Rod's got some really great insight into, I think, a topic that we can all benefit from, and that's having a roadmap for your life. I know that I've participated in a very similar experience, and it's been just so helpful to me. And so I hope that you get a lot out of this live stream today. But I did want to take a couple of minutes for those of you that are maybe not familiar with Fireside or are maybe considering joining Fireside. I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes and tell you who we are and what we're all about. So Fireside is an organization that is focused on helping private practice pediatric dentists solve complex problems with expert business support. We are owned and have investors that are pediatric dentists. We have an advisory board made up of private practice pediatric dentists. So we really have incorporated business strategy with pediatric dentists to truly understand the challenges that you're facing running a practice. And so we are providing support for our members in 4 different areas, and that the first is around your people. So that's one of the things that we hear from private practice pediatric dentists consistently, is that hiring and staffing and maintaining and retaining employees, compensation issues is certainly a big challenge within a practice. And so we've got solutions and services that help our members really address that issue particularly, and have some great services around that. And then we also help our members with their expenses. So we know that your overhead to run your practice is consistently going up. All of your materials are becoming more expensive. It's just becoming more expensive to run a practice. And so instead of dipping into your profit margins, we have services and solutions for our members that are saving them significant amounts of money without having to make major changes within their practice, which I think is important. Revenue is also an area where we help our members. So we're helping a lot of our members with marketing and attracting new patients. And we've got some really nice services that are geared to not only saving you money through the expenses, but then also helping generate additional revenue. And then finally, development. We are a membership, and we are only private practice pediatric dentists. And so we've got a unique opportunity to help our members collaborate and connect through networking. In fact, this live stream that we're doing today with Rod is an example of the type of content that we're curating for all of our members. And so the development is really key in just giving our folks the opportunity to ask questions from their peers and to be able to discuss important topics that impact your practice. So we realize that not only are you a pediatric dentist, but you're also the CEO, you're the chief marketing officer. A lot of times you're the CFO. So you wear a lot of hats to run your practice. And we know that can be overwhelming because you're spending the large majority of your day providing clinical services to your patients. And so what we want to do is be able to come alongside and really relieve you from that burden of trying to run your business by yourself. And so we're giving you expert support for the things that keep you up at night. We know that most likely it's your business type challenges that are keeping you up at night and causing that stress and worry. And so we want to be a partner to help relieve that from you. so that you can truly focus on what you love and what you went to school for, and that's delivering great service to children. So just an example of one of the services that we provide is I mentioned the People Challenge. And so we're providing services to our members so that they can ensure that they're hiring A players. And it's also giving our members the ability to invest back into their team and into their culture, which we think is so important to being able to have that cohesive team that you're not worried about leaving, that are there, that they all work together in a great way. And so that's an example of one of the items that we're addressing for our members. And then also the insurance optimization. We've got services that are allowing our members to really dive into this service and this area of your practice, just to make sure that you're doing the right things, that you're with the right providers, that it makes sense. And so that's been an important service that we're providing for our members as well. And then finally, I'm going to wrap up here, and then we can jump in with Rod. But right now, there really are two scenarios for private practice pediatric dentist. And one is to continue what you're doing, go it alone, continue to be the CEO, the CFO. And there are some advantages, certainly, with owning your own practice, but we also know that the burden of running your business is massive with private practice and doing it on your own. The other option is obviously to join a DSO, to sell your practice. And while the DSO does provide some benefits from a business support standpoint, you don't own your practice anymore. And, that's a tough pill for a lot of folks to swallow. And so what Fireside is doing is we've created a model, and we've created a better future for private practice pediatric dentists. And so we're giving our members the best of both worlds. We're allowing you to stay private, but to be able to lean on us for business support in all areas of your business, but to also have the advantages of a DSO and to be able to give you the purchasing power that comes along with being a part of a group. So one of the big advantages that we offer our members as being a part of a group and being a member of Fireside is we're able to go out and curate services, very valuable services, but we're able to do it at a discounted price. And so that's where we're able to deliver significant savings, not only with clinical supplies and payment processing, but also with all of the other services that we bring to you. We're leveraging the group discounts that we can get by being a big group of pediatric dentists. So thank you all for joining. I'm going to let Rod jump in, and we're really excited to have you, Rod.
Thank you so much. Let me make sure that this is showing up. Allison, are we okay?
We are good. We're still seeing your slides on the left. So yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
Is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. It's nice to meet you, although I can't see you, but that's all right. My name is Rod Stewart. You can imagine the comments I get when I travel around the world, but I was in business and technology for about 34 years, and then I moved into life and leadership coaching. So I'm a professional certified coach. I work with the Halftime Institute part of the time. And what we do is help people figure out what's really going on inside of them and put together a plan for their life. And it's a little different than planning out your business. It's a little different than taking care of your kids, but it encompasses that. So I'm going to walk through these different topics and basically provide an overview. And topics including moving from success to significance, and I'll talk more about that, discovering your passions, living out of your core values, having the courage to dream regardless of what status in life or where you are in life. And that's a little hard to do if you're buried under a lot of responsibility, but it can be done. A thriving family, if you have a family or you have those that you love that are close to you, partners or whatever, is it possible for you to have an intentional plan for how to encourage them, how to strengthen them, how to bless them? And finding joy in the empty nest, I don't know your ages, but if you're in your 50s, 60s, maybe late 40s, whatever, depending on when you started with your kids, you could be coming up on empty nest. And it's a very significant transition in life, something that there's a lot of writing on, a lot of concepts that can help you. How much is enough? This is a really great question, right? How much is enough for what? How much money do you need? How many cars? How many houses? How many boats? Whatever it is. Have you ever figured out what a limit on that might look like? And then developing a life mission statement, you kind of pull these things together and you articulate a sentence about what you think kind of your highest calling in life is, and write it down and let it percolate and work with it. And it becomes a tool for you to make decisions about what your life is going to look like. And then rolling these top concepts together, you put them all together on one 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I'll show you how to do that. So let me click here. So this is a concept that we've worked with, which is, in American business and Western civilization business, success is defined by profits, money, market share, winning, competition, the whole thing, which is good. I'm not saying it isn't, but there is more to life than winning. And it's a life of significance, things that satisfy your soul, the deeper things. And I get it. When you're 35, you're raising kids, you're building your business, you don't have much time to think about that because your family and your business is your significance. But if you get through that a little bit, it's helpful and worthwhile to take time and reflect and think about what's really significant to you. And there's tools, there's ways to do that. But I like this book called Strength to Strength by Arthur C. Brooks. You may have read it. Talks about your intelligence and your wisdom and how you move from one kind of intelligence to another as you age. But here's a couple quotes right on the left. Move beyond the relentless pursuit, professional achievement. And I get it, you're there. But to finding purpose and joy in life through relationships, service, and inner growth. And when I was in my tech business, nobody cared about any of that. It was, Rod, go get the market share, build this business. What's the P&L? What's the EPS? There's all these metrics for business success. And it was very stimulating. And then something happened in about my late 40s, something like that. It was no longer fun. And what I discovered is I had not paid any attention to the inner life. And I'm kind of offering the concept that wherever you are in your career at whatever age, pay a little attention to that. And you might be able to tweak your life plan, change some things out, let some things go, add some things in that will increase your satisfaction and joy in life. It's not easy to do by yourself, frankly, but it can be done, especially, I'm in this business, so I'll be a partisan for it, but it takes a coach or a counselor or a friend to help you talk through this stuff. You can't really figure it out on your own. So here's some quotes from Arthur, right? Your satisfaction is what you have divided by what you want. In other words, change your wanting and your satisfaction will go way up. Be satisfied with what you have instead of what you don't have. And you've heard these things before, but it's really true. When you are young, you have raw smarts. When you're old, you have wisdom. This is the strength to strength concept. And if you do anything about brain science, and you think about your intellect and your thinking skill and the speed of recall, those things change over time. And what you wind up with is wisdom. Maybe you can't recall a name or a date as quickly, but you have this depth of wisdom and experience to offer people. And I'll give an example. So unfortunately, we were in the hospital this weekend with my wife, and she's fine now, thank you. But a cardiologist comes in, and this young guy comes in. He's a fellow at the local regional medical center, and he says, I'm Dr. So-and-so. he sits down and he spent 30 minutes with us. It was fabulous, explaining everything going on. And he said, I work with this older doctor. He's been doing it for 35, 40 years. He has the experience and the wisdom, and I have the book smarts. And I thought that's a perfect example of what we're talking about here, right? You have book smarts, you have, maybe in your case, you have technical skill. And as you get a little older, you learn wisdom. A client comes in, a child comes in, a parent comes in, you kind of sense what's going on, and you can meet their need in a different way than when you were 25, right? This is something to celebrate. And I think that people have this tremendous amount of opportunity to give back to society at any age. And certainly through your career, but also through your relationships, through your network, things you might write, people you might meet. So the single most important trait of happy, well elders is healthy relationships. I coach a lot of men and some women, but mostly men in their 50s and 60s. And I'll be talking about their whole life, like what I'm doing now. And I'll say, hey, tell me about your friends. Tell me about your relationships. And oh yeah, I got a lot of friends. I got 20, 30, 40 people. And I said, do you ever talk about soul or heart level concepts with them, and feelings and emotions and deep desires? And they go, are you kidding me? These are acquaintances. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you would like to have a successful, intentional, sustainable life, and thrive out throughout your next 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years, you need deep friendships. They don't happen in business unless you work at it. And I'll tell you what happened to me. I was with a company for 34 years, had a lot of friends, I thought, acquaintances. The minute I retired, it was like I didn't exist, right? 12 years ago. And yet this morning I met with 3 close friends that I've been meeting with for years, and we shared life and we helped each other, and it was very, very rich and satisfying. And so how do you add that into your life? And if you don't have time for friends, how do you take something out so you can add it back in? And then lastly here, love is reserved for people, not things. To misplace your love is to invite frustration and futility. You should read this book. It's really, really helpful. But I think that, what people really crave is acceptance and relationship and love and care. And for those of us that have the ability, that means that we serve and sacrifice to help other people. But in return, you get this greater sense of joy and meaning in your life. Now, you're doing that by serving your clients. Absolutely. You do that with excellence. And you're probably serving the parents. And how else can you help them? I just remember my son, he hated the dentist. Even as a young child, he hated the dentist. And but there was one female dentist who was excellent with him and was able to kind of talk him off of his anxiety and into the chair and getting some of this work done. And I really appreciated that. And so your skill, your emotional intelligence, your ability to relate to not just the child, but also the parent is a big differentiator, I'm sure, in your business. At least it was with my kids and now with my 6 grandkids. So let me keep moving here. And Allison, maybe partway into this, if we could stop and ask for questions if there are any. I'll do a couple more and then we'll stop. Right. So, this is a concept that I think is fairly universal with any transition in your life, right? So you see this first curve down here. And the way I think about this is when you start a new endeavor, let's say in my case, graduated from school, degree in electrical engineering, went back for an MBA, thought I knew everything, went to work in my tech company, and I quickly realized that I didn't really understand how the organization worked. I didn't know how to succeed. I didn't really understand the people. I didn't, there's a lot of things I didn't know just having come out of school. So your competence over time, it feels like you're going down. It feels like you're regressing. It's kind of like you didn't know what you didn't know, and now you know what you don't know, right? And you got to figure that out. So bright people like you and me and everybody else on this call, they begin to figure it out. And they start climbing the competence and productivity and skill curve. And you get good at your job. And for a lot of people, they stay at it and they get to this point where they plateau. They go, you know what? I'm really good at this, but frankly, it's boring. Or another phrase is, I feel this smoldering discontent. What is it about this role or this job or these people I'm working with or whatever I'm doing that is no longer satisfying? And your competence and your skill and your productivity begins to drop. And it doesn't mean you change your job. It could mean that you change your approach, you change your mindset, or you change your heart set. And what I'm arguing for is when you find yourself nearing this, and you'll know, but when you find yourself nearing this, start a new curve, start over, reinvent yourself. And it's painful and it takes courage and it is rewarding, right? And so my example, I did this thing for 34 years, was at the peak of my game, making a bunch of money at my tech company. And I said, you know what, there's got to be more to life than this. I'm putting in 50, 60 hours a week. I'm traveling 100 days a year, most of that internationally. And I'm tired. And and everyone said, wow, you're doing great. You're just paying you a ton of money or whatever. And I said, you know what? I am discontent. I need to do something different. And this is where the halftime story comes in. Somebody handed me the book, Halftime by Bob Buford. And I read it and I said, this is what I want. I want to reinvent myself so that there's something more significant and satisfying about how I spend my hours every day. So, I left. And to be honest, I had enough money, so I didn't have to work, but I left and it was painful. And I spent a couple of years in the wilderness, not really knowing what to do. And slowly I got connected with coaching, which I had actually done all of my career and found very satisfying. And I kind of reconnected that thread to the future. And I began to coach clients and senior business people and senior ministry and nonprofit leaders. And I went back up the curve, got a bunch of certifications, took a bunch of classes, read a bunch of books. And I thought about this, and it's a better time to consider how to reinvent yourself when you're at point A than after you've gone over the hump and you're going down towards the ground at point B. So think about it for your life. And it could be, for example, I don't know anything about dentistry except for my dentist, I had a really great dentist and now I got one that just turns the crank. But anyway, it could be that's a different approach. It could be you want to partner with a dentist. It could be that you want to restructure your week. You want to bring somebody in, have Fireside help you bring somebody in that can run your quote admin or your business for you and free you up. And maybe you take a half a day a week or a day a week and do something else. I'll give you a quick story. So there was a client who was a dentist in New York, successful practice. And he said, I don't know what to do. I feel dissatisfied. I'm a great dentist, but that's all I do. And he brainstormed with a coach for a while and they said, so what do you care about? What are your passions? He says, well, I really feel bad for the disadvantaged. And so they put that together. And what he did is he created a no-charge clinic in his city. And he brought in students from the local dental school and he trained them and mentored them. They provided service to the people that couldn't afford dentistry. And you all know more than I do what that meant, that someone with a really bad crooked set of teeth who had a beautiful smile at the end, what a difference that can make in their whole life. They can get jobs better. They can do all kinds of things, right? And he felt great joy in taking Fridays to do that. Of course, it was his money to do that. He wasn't getting paid to do it. But it was this, he reinvented himself, leveraging his current network and his skills and his whatever he had into the local dental school and all that kind of stuff. So the question for you is, where are you on this curve? Are you feeling good about growth for a long time where you're at? Are you entering into this, we'll call it a liminal space where you're not quite sure? Or have you started up another curve? It's worth reflecting on this. So, okay. I'm gonna do another couple slides here, Allison, and I'm gonna stop. So I use a series of questions and tools and assessments and readings and books and things to help people think about this. One of them is Perfect Life Metrics. It's kind of a silly title. No such thing, right? But it's a thought experiment. If in the next 10 years of your life, if the next 10 years of your life turned out perfectly, what would the elements be? I actually used this with my friends this morning. What would the elements be? Would it be something around wealth? Would it be your children? Would it be your parents? Would it be travel? Would it be adventure? Would it be freedom? Would it be time to work on your own personal growth? Would it be building something new, starting something new? I don't know. The problem is most people never ask the question. And it isn't easy to answer. But when I did this, it was dramatic because it created this opportunity to envision that most of us don't take the time to do. And so let me just do one more else and I'll stop. So here's, this one's fun. So imagine it's your 80th birthday. People are living a little bit longer, so maybe it's your 85th, but imagine it's your 80th birthday. Your spouse has planned a quiet evening for just the two of you at your favorite restaurant. When you arrive at the restaurant, you're surprised to see that the whole building has been reserved for you. There are 200 of your, quote, closest friends, family, and colleagues there. Then, one by one, each attendee comes up to the microphone in front of the room and speaks to 3 issues. What would you hope to hear? Here's what I admire most about you. Here's the difference you made in my life. Beyond your marriage, family, and friends, what's the most significant contribution you've made to humanity? And people start writing this stuff down. And this is a legacy question. This is a legacy question. What do you want to be remembered for? And we often say, start or begin with the end in mind and live a life of intentionality. So if you think about where you want to be when you're 80, first of all, do you have 200 people that would show up, or maybe 20 for that matter? And what do you want them to say? And this is I was talking to a pastor friend of mine, older pastor friend, and I asked him this question. He thought about it for a minute and he said, actually, I asked it differently. I said, what do you want on your tombstone? He thought about it for a minute and he said, he cared. He wanted people to remember him for the fact that he cared for them. You have that opportunity to care for your children and your parents and the significant others that show up. And they will remember your care more than your service, frankly. I mean, if you fix their teeth, they'll remember that. But the tone, the questions you ask, if you take an extra 1 minute to care for them, in 30 years, they're going to remember that, right? And so I'm going to stop, Allison. I'm just going to ask if any of this has resonated with anybody. Do you have any comments or questions?
And for any attendees, if you want to come off mute and chime in or ask Rod a question or give any thoughts, you're welcome to do so. I think that with the way we've got it set up, you may have to raise your hand and then I can unmute you. Or actually, I might just be able to do so. Here we go. Talk. If you're interested in doing so, you can. So now anyone who would like to can chime in or ask.
Yeah, I realize it wasn't set up this way, but it's always fun if somebody asks a question or makes a comment, anything that resonates with them or something. All right. Well, I'll keep going. I
I
can talk.
I'll add one comment. I think it is thinking about the care and the service and just legacy. I follow a lot of our practices on Instagram and social media, and it's always so heartening to see those the patient graduation, and you just can tell, that has been a relationship. I saw one from Dr. Tiffany Green the other day, a couple of patients who had been with her for a long time, and it is just so heartwarming to see that you wherever you started in that child's journey, that now they're moving on to a different phase. But that, to me, especially with passage of time and just thinking about legacy and exactly what you said, that those children will remember how you treated them and how they felt in your care for so long, that it's that lasting impact. And that is, I think, one of the key things that I think is so special about this field, and so admirable of the people who choose to do it.
All right, let me keep going. So another concept to help you build your life roadmap is, what do you really care about? We all have this spectrum in our minds of needs, concerns, burdens, and passions. And you read the newspaper and you say, oh my gosh, right? Politics, world wars, pandemics, you name it, right? These things are all concerns. But if you think about it a little bit, there's some things that really burden you, 3 or 4, and you go a little bit further and you go, you know what, there's 1 or 2 things I'm deeply moved by. I really care about sex trafficking, or I really care about people that don't have access to healthcare, or I really care about the housing issue in my city, or whatever, right? And uncovering what you're passionate about. I mean, you wouldn't be in dentistry if you weren't passionate about that. But how you approach it, or do you have a little bit of extra outside of that to explore and develop your passion? It could be almost anything. The story of a woman who was a pediatric nurse in the local hospital, and she retired, and she says, I just really miss the babies. And so her passion is, she goes into the neonatal unit and holds them and just rocks them. That's her passion. And by the way, it makes a huge difference in that child's emotional and physical growth, as you know better than I do, right? But it's the fuel. It makes us explore new things, develop new relationships, seek solutions. But for most of us, our passions have been buried under responsibility and obligation. Think about it. What did you like to do when you were 13 or 15? Before you went to college and you got this load of things, and then you went to dental school, and then you started your practice and have your kids, and you're trying to make payment, all that stuff, right? But if you went back to what you really like, I mean, I think about George Bush. He paints, right? What are you really passionate about? I was talking to a client yesterday, and he says, I just love to sail. I said, how could you use that for somebody's benefit? He says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy a big sailboat. He lives in Florida now. He's retiring from the CEO position. I'm going to invite my friends out, and we're going to talk about significant things in life, not the weather and sports. We're going to talk about heart level issues, and I'm going to set it up that way. I said, phenomenal, right? So you marry a passion with an act of service, and your joy grows. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button here, and I will fix it. Hang on 1 second. Okay. Another tool is called values alignment. You've probably heard this, right? Values, clear, whatever. It's a buzzword thing that used to be around. But when your life is, first of all, you have to know what they are. But when you do figure out a few of these and your life is in alignment with it, your life is more peaceful, inspiring, energizing, fulfilling. And if you're involved in something where your values aren't in alignment with it, it's tiring, it's boring, it's draining, it's weary, right? So, for me, adventure, excellence, faith, friendships, learning, leadership, strategy, winning, wisdom. Those are kind of my list, right? You pick your own and you go, okay, so if I have 5 of these or 3 of these or whatever, how is my life able to demonstrate or participate with these values? And it can be pretty eye-opening. And I mean, you'll meet people, if you have these words in your mind, you'll meet people and you go, they really benefit, they really value security, or this person really values tradition. The Sunday afternoon meal, it's got to be just like this, right? Or freedom. So many people are just aching for freedom. And then you say, fantastic, freedom from what? And now you're into it, right? And what you're really trying to do is understand your own deepest desires and your values and your passions, articulate those on a piece of paper, and then use those to build your life roadmap. Here's another one. These are all similar, but the questions are slightly different. Take a few minutes sometime on a weekend, take 3 or 4 hours on a piece of paper and get away from the house, go somewhere. What would the ideal life look like for you and your loved ones? And here's the thing about doing this kind of envisioning is you think it's impossible, but if you envision something and you actually articulate it and you write it down, even if you don't have a clear action plan for it, in your subconscious, you'll be working towards that. I've seen it many, many times, right? And we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, and we underestimate what we can accomplish in 3 years. So if you do some of these questions and you write some of these things down, and you say, well, that seems impossible, and you start thinking about it, and then you set it down, share it with somebody, then set it down, noodle on a little bit, and then set it down. Your brain will bring up opportunities to progress towards that vision. It's a marvelous thing. It's how we're wired, right? Another way to ask the question, what big project, business, ministry, or dream of a lifetime would you attempt if you couldn't fail? Now, of course, you could fail, but it's a thought experiment. How big would it be? Who would you work with? What would the content be? What would you do every day if you were independently wealthy? And now I get that many aren't, but it's weird. People who are independently wealthy, frankly, are lost. A lot of times they're lost. They don't know what to do with their wealth. They don't know what to do with their time. They don't have to work. They don't have a purpose. And they can become very depressed, or they can go the other way and just continually seek pleasure. Ever met somebody on a cruise or a trip where you sit down and talk to them and say, hey, what's going on, right? And they say, oh, wow, yeah, no, we got 8 cruises this year we're going on. And you go, what's behind that? And to be honest with you, a lot of times it's escape. They don't know who they are or where they're going, and it seems like the right thing to do to just travel around, but there's no purpose to it. Now, there can be a purpose, but they haven't thought it out. It's just like a thing they talk about, right? And now maybe you're going on a cruise, so sorry if I offended you, but I met somebody like this when I went on my retirement trip to Bora Bora, and I thought, oh my gosh, they are lost. But what would the ideal week look and feel like? Write it down, right? I'd like to work 8 hours less, or 4 hours less. How can I do that? Well, that means I have to earn more, or lower my expenses, or restructure my practice, or offer a new service. I don't know what it is, but these things can be figured out, right? Here's a tool that I like, and you may have done this before. It's called StrengthsFinder, and it focuses on what you're good at naturally. And this is part of the process of understanding who you are. And when you understand how God has wired you and who you are, you're better able to put together the life you want to lead that is more satisfying. And Don Clifton put this together. And by the way, it's been assessed now. Millions and millions of people around the world have taken this, right? It's a personality assessment. What will happen when we think about what is right with people rather than fixating on what is wrong with them? Your child comes home from school, he gets straight A's and 1 C, and what do you talk about? The C. And his point is, wow, we should really be celebrating all the other great stuff. and helping them do okay with the stuff they're not good at. But beating them up to be the perfect mathematician when math isn't their thing is just counterproductive, right? And my kids are 40 and 43, and I did a little bit of that. So I'm just learned that later in life, I guess. Most people think they know what they are good at. They are usually wrong. And yet a person can perform only from strength, meaning your best, your excellent work comes from your strengths. How do you know what they are? Well, a strength is a talent that you've invested in. A talent is a natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. A strength is the ability to consistently provide near perfect performance. So let's say that you are in a position in life where you're a public speaker, and everyone says, you know what, you are just naturally good on stage. You've got a winsome personality. Your communication style is great. And you think about that and you go, I'd really like to leverage that. So you take some classes. You take a professional speaking class. You work at it. You invest in it. And eventually you become outstanding. That's what this is all about. Now, you may not be very good at accounting. But you need to know enough about it to get by. And you need to put somebody in your life to take care of the accounting for you who loves it and is really good at it, believe it or not, right? But here's the process. You take this test, it prints out 34 strengths. The top 5, 7 are most important. And then naming and owning your talents gives you permission to stop trying to be who you're not and concentrate on who you are, who we were originally created to be. And so that's tell you what, makes a huge difference. If you've ever been in an organizational structure and you've seen people that are in a job where their strengths are not being utilized and they struggle to do the minimum and they're average, and you just want to scream and say, man, you ought to be in sales instead of engineering, or you ought to go back to school and develop this strength. But, they don't listen sometimes. There's 4 domains of this stuff. There's 32 of these. They're in the executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. So if you're in a team setting, an office setting, and you look at this and you go, it'd be pretty cool if we had the right people doing the right job. And this is a tool to help you figure that out. You might need somebody in your office who's really good at relationship building, empathy, connectedness, positivity, relator. If you're trying to figure out, how to grow your business, how to join with somebody else, whether or not to sell to this large organization, you may need some strategic thinking, perhaps, that you don't have. Yeah, fine. Bring somebody in, right? And executing, these people, they get stuff done. They just get stuff done, right? And, I'll tell you my story. If you can see this is me. Achiever, learner, connectedness, arranger, belief. So take the left column for a minute. And this is a standard thing that StrengthsFinder spits out. It's 34 talent themes. It only takes about 20 minutes. I think they ask 150 questions. It's really accurate. Talk about an AI database. They have got millions of people in their database. And so the printouts of these things are tailored for your 34 in sequence. Achiever, work hard, stamina, take satisfaction, driven, diligent, intense, honest stuff, right? I am a hard worker. I set the pace. I value intensity and stamina. I need freedom to work at my own pace. The image or the metaphor is completing a race and getting to the finish line. However, there's a thing called a barrier label. Another way to think of it is each of these talents has a balcony and a basement. And so the basement here is work is more important than people. Workaholism is one of the downsides. But here's the cool thing. If you know this and you think about it, you can choose to operate out of your balcony instead of your basement. And you can feel yourself yourself slipping into the basement and you go, you know what, I'm not going there. That's not a healthy way to live, right? And so you can just, look at all of this. I won't go through them all, but if you're curious, it's an easy thing to do. Clifton StrengthsFinder. Here's the balcony and basement for achiever. Tireless, strong work ethic, leads by example, etc. Unbalanced, overcommitted, can say no, too concentrated on work. I'll never forget when my wife said to me, Rod, I think you are becoming a workaholic. I said, no, I'm not. She said, go look at your calendar for the last 6 months and the travel and the hours and the weekends and all that. And I said, I was really hit with that comment, and I actually changed my life because of that. Another thing is your family. What's your vision for your family over the next 20 or your significant relationships if you don't have a family, 10 and 20 years? How can you serve them? What is your role, right? If you're the leader and you do have family, you have kids in the house, what is your role anyway? And how does it change as they go to high school and college and adulthood? What do they need for their own personal development? If you thought about the needs of your kids or the needs of your cousin or your sister or your brother or your mom or your dad, is there something here that I can do to encourage them and help them develop? Maybe I want to pay for a class. Maybe I want to do something. I don't know. So you put a little bit of an action plan together around that. I'll just say this about the empty nest. As your kids get into their late teens and go to college, your role changes. And your goal, I believe, of every parent is to keep responsible adulthood in mind. And that means you have to let go. And experience is a better teacher than your advice. You have the advice, you have the experience, but speaking it to them may not be appropriate for their growth. This is the hard part. Now, when they do leave and your house is empty, you need to reinvent yourself. And find purpose, because for a lot of people, including my wife, parenting was the purpose. And when our youngest left, she went through this exercise informally and said, what am I all about anyway? And for her, it was teaching precept Bible studies. She loves it, right? And mentoring other younger women. And this is Albert Schweitzer. The only ones among you who will be really happy are those who will have sought and found how to serve. I have found this absolutely to be true. The people that are trying just to have fun when they get older and travel and do all this kind of stuff, they're pretty darn miserable. The people who have learned how to give and serve others, they are satisfied and happy. It might seem kind of not intuitive, but it's absolutely true. How much is enough? Understand your current and future financial position. There's this thing called Monte Carlo assessment analysis for wealth advisors, where they take your projected income and expenses, they run it through this statistical algorithm, and they come up and say, yep, you're going to outlive your wealth. Or nope, you need to earn extra income, or you need to change your spend habits or something. It's pretty darn helpful. Cultivate a heart of generosity. Give some away. Right? Give some away. Give to the causes that align with your values. Vet those causes and get involved with them a little bit, and there's much greater satisfaction in doing so. This is a couple of verses from the Bible. Make careful exploration of who you are and the work you've been given, then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. This is the Message version of the Bible. And here's another, this is another version, the New International Version. Each one should test their own actions. What am I doing and why am I doing it is the test. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. I have been given a unique set of talents and gifts. How am I doing stewarding those? Am I making a difference in the world? And one more, and then I'll talk about roadmap. But think about your role in life, the cause that excites you, the culture of an organization that you can thrive in. This is really important as you get a little bit older. What's the culture you're creating so that others can thrive in your office? Or if you're joining somebody or selling to somebody, what's the culture of that group? Are they going to carry on the things that I value in my office? Or is the new guy going to come in, slash and burn, and we're done, right? Big deal in buying and selling companies, right? How do I manage my work-life balance? How much time am I willing to put in? Who do I like to work with, and who likes to work with me? This is a really big. If you don't like working with people, move away, do something different, change it out, right? And then, of course, financial considerations. Whoops, sorry, I would just did that again. Let me just jump down here to this guy. So, mission statement, and these are from Halftime. This is mine on the upper left. Encourage marketplace leaders to find their significance in Christ and embrace their calling from God. The lower right is Bob Buford, who founded Halftime, to use my leadership skills and relationship networks to turn the latent energy of American Christianity into active energy. A friend of mine, helping individuals transform so they can transform the world. So it doesn't really matter if it looks like this, but it's a sentence that crystallizes your highest contribution, and it becomes a guide for you to figure out what you will and you won't do. Somebody asked me to write a book or travel and speak or join a company so they can lower their costs, right? And if it's not part of this mission statement in the upper left, I just don't do it, right? So this is the culmination of what we're talking about here. This is a tool that I use with clients. And you can see in the upper left, the mission statement. There's a thing called a being statement. There's perfect life metrics we've talked about. It's important to talk to your spouse's dream or your significant other partner's dream. What do they want out of life anyway, right? And your family vision, if you're a family head or part of a family, what do you really want for your family, right? And how do you know if you've gotten it? And then your strengths, and then we try to limit it to 5 action areas. What do you really care about? And what's the plan for each of those life channels? And what do you want? What's the desired outcome? What are you going to do? What are the capacity, meaning time, money, resources, people, experts that you need to call in? Accelerators. So you put a plan together and you look at it and you go, wow, there's 2 or 3 obstacles in the way. What can I do about those? Who can help me is a big deal. You don't want to do this alone. It just doesn't work because you'll do it, it's hard, and then you'll give up because it's too hard, right? And then the milestones, we're not talking about a detailed SMART goal or KPIs here. We're talking about 2 or 3 milestones in the next 1 to 2 years that you can keep in mind and put this roadmap, tape it on your screen or in your office or something like that, and just look at it once in a while, right? And here's it filled out. And I know it looks like a lot, but it is super rich. And you know, I'm a follower of Christ, so you can see a lot of Christian thought in here. It doesn't have to be like that, but you know, my family's vision, what counts to me, my family's vision is each member is safe and secure in Christ. And my family legacy, faith, growth, health, love for each other, compassion, generosity, diligence, and competence. Most of those are in good stead right now with my kids and my grandkids, right? Not all. I'm still working on it as best I can. But I have personal, emotional, and spiritual growth, family, local ministry, coaching business, recreation, and adventure. A lot of people are kind of, yeah, I should do all of this. And it turns into a work project. And I'm saying, you know what? in order for you to have sustainability, you need to have recreation and adventure. And maybe this is a male thing a little bit, the adventure part, but still, what are you going to do to kind of nurture your soul and have some fun? It's hard to imagine that you have to plan for fun, but for many people you do, because otherwise life just gets away from you, right? And and so you can see what I do, desired results. What will I do? Capacity. Who can help me? John and Paul and Larry were three of the guys I met with this morning. And I have a couple of men's groups, one I lead and one I'm just part of, a couple of pastors. I coach one of the pastors and look at it every quarter. Family, recreation, intellectual growth. I'm a learner. You can see up above. I need to constantly be reading, studying, listening to podcasts. I want to develop deeper friendships. I have some, but I'd like to go deeper. I want to experience joy and fun and learn new skills. These are the desired results. Then what am I going to do? International travel. We've been going about 3 weeks a year. Spend time with my son in Dallas. Extra time with my other family. Plan new firsts there. This is something I learned from a client. What are you going to do new this year that you haven't done before? Why don't you plan that? Plan new firsts every year. So I'm not going to burn tons of time on this. We're going to wrap here now, but I just got to tell you something. This type of thinking can change your life. It's hard to do on your own. And if something like this is interesting, I'd be pleased to talk to you. But anyway, thanks so much. And Allison?
Thank you so much, Rod. That was wonderful. And I didn't ask you this before, but is there a template that you use for that life roadmap that we could include in follow-up?
Yeah, sure. I'll send it to you.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
I know I'm definitely going to go and fill one out myself. So.
I'll help you, Allison, if you want.
That's perfect. Well, if there are any questions, I think we've got a couple more minutes. If any attendees have questions, you can send it in through the Q&A. You can raise your hand, come off mute. The floor is open, but I will quickly pull this up. Just if you are not a Fireside member and you're interested in learning more, to join future sessions like this, maybe future sessions with Rod, there are just a couple next steps. The membership is $400 a month. If you pay annually, $475 month to month. But really all it starts with is filling out a one-page member application. That's just for us to learn more about you and your practice, your current challenges, your current kind of setup. And then the next step from there, after that one-page application, is just a 30-minute intro call and demo with our co-founders, so Bart being one of them, and just to, again, dive into those questions, really understand if it's a good fit for you. And then the third step is just a savings analysis. So as Bart mentioned, those significant clinical supply savings, payment processing savings, the other areas of the business that we might be able to help with, an analysis call to present back those findings. So it's a fairly easy process. We try to keep it quick. We know you are all busy, but we have grown to about 55 members from 14 states so far, just in our first 6 months of being in business. So we appreciate you coming on and being willing to learn more about Fireside, and hopefully finding incredible value as I did from Rod's session. So I don't see any questions in the chat, but we will send out the recording if you want to revisit any section, and that template for the roadmap and a quick kind of overview of the resources that Rod shared. So thank you all for your time, for joining us today, investing back in yourself for your team. And Rod, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. All right. We'll see you all.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Bye-bye.